Okay, so I got some Lomachenko fanboys running to my page saying, "Stop hating. Lomachenko did not petition for the franchise champion. Get your facts straight, blah, blah, blah." What they're referring to is a video that's on Lomachenko's channel where, he talks about, a franchise champion, pound for pound, of Canelo Alvarez or whatever and whatnot. And the interviewer asked him about franchise champion, and he said that, he didn't petition for the position. You know what I'm saying? That they propositioned him with it. And everybody, and including his fanboys, instantly say, "Oh, well, I knew it. I knew he wouldn't do that, and this, that, and the third. You guys don't know what you're talking about. As if you can pin what one person says against another person and take one person's credit more than the other person in this situation. You actually can't. Let me explain what I'm talking about. But before I get into what I'm talking about, you Lomachenko fanboys and even some of his fans, you guys have to understand, you can't call everybody a hater who's just as critical of Lomachenko as they are with a PBC fighter, with a Deontay Wilder, with an Errol Spence, and with a Gervonta Tank Davis. You guys can't do that. Number one, you expose yourself. And number two, just quite frankly, I am not ESPN. I do not give out white privileges. I'm sorry. I'm going to line him up with the rest of the people that I have something to say about, whether your feelings get hurt or not. You guys got to grow up about this boxing thing. But let's get into Mauricio Sulaimán. And I'm just going to keep this super simple. Just think on a common sense level. And it's going to be a two-part video, by the way, because, well, I'm going to get to that at the end. But we're going to speak on a common sense level, okay? So let's talk about Mauricio Sulaimán. Mauricio Sulaimán said that they gave the franchise belt to Canelo Alvarez and Lomachenko petitioned for his, right? This is the main question. As big as a fat rat as Mauricio Sulaimán is, the question I got to ask is, why lie? And this is what I mean. Just as easy as he told you we gave it to Canelo, he can easily tell you that we gave it to Lomachenko. Where's the backlash is that? Where's the point for him to lie about it? And I'm not taking up for him because I know he's super crooked, but let's just think on a basic level. Why lie? He can easily tell you, hey, we gave it to Lomachenko and we gave it to Canelo. Easy. There is no problem with that. Just think on a common sense level. Another thing to think about, and once again, just think on a common sense level. All right? Nobody can make you take anything that you do not want. Lomachenko didn't say that they came to me and they forced this on me. He didn't say that. He said they came to me with it. Okay? And whether he petitioned or not, he took it. The point is, if you didn't want it, you did not have to take it. Plain and simple. Why take something you don't want? Did they twist your elbow? Did they make you do it? No. And another thing that's suspicious to me is Lomachenko could have got out in front of this himself a long time ago. It shouldn't have to wait to this interview for another interviewer to bring it up to ask you about it. He could have hopped on Twitter and said something. He could have hopped on anybody's platform and said something immediately. I'm talking about immediately after Mauricio Sulaimán said this, say, hey, I didn't petition for this. They came to me with it real quick. You know what I'm saying? If he can get on Twitter and thumb wrestle with Gervonta Tank Davis, he can get on Twitter and say, look, I didn't petition for this. He knew how it looked, but he was just going to let it drag on. You know what I'm saying? So it's very simple. You do not have to take something that you do not want. Okay? Once again, a common sense level. Number three. Okay? Lomachenko does not fit the franchise champion criteria. How could he? He just won that belt. What has he done for the WBC in the meantime, in between time, before he got that belt? He doesn't pull in revenue. He's not on pay-per-view. He's not a big star, you know, and he just got that belt. So once again, what makes Lomachenko a franchise champion? Honestly, what makes him a franchise champion? Do you know what a franchise is? You know what I'm saying? Anthony Joshua would be considered a franchise champion. It's money behind him. You know what I'm saying? It's money behind him. Canelo Alvarez, I understand. Franchise champion. I get it. But what qualifies Lomachenko to be franchise champion? Because it's not revenue and it's not views. So what is it? And then most importantly, why give up your WBC belt? Think about this. Why give up your WBC belt for a designation? Mauricio Sulaimán said himself in the very interview which he said that Vasily Lomachenko petitioned for the franchise champion, that it is not a title and it is not a belt. So why would you give up a belt for a designation? It's very simple to understand. Why give up a belt for a designation? He said it's not a title and it's not a belt. Okay? It's just something that they call you. Why would you give up a belt just to be called franchise champion? And your whole thing has been undisputed, 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 undisputed. Why would you give up a belt for basically a title? Not a fight title, not a championship title, but just a title. I am a franchise champion. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound like the person who is constantly pursuing undisputed to you? That doesn't make any sense. He also goes on in that interview to say, what has Devin Haney done? Or who has he fought? Okay? And this is the incriminating part right here. Now all of a sudden, your mandatory's got to be who you have fought. Okay? He became your mandatory going through the proper and correct channels. Any other time it's time for him to fight a mandatory, he has no problem fighting that mandatory. Okay? And he never said to any other mandatory, who have they fought to be able to fight me? They was your mandatories. Devin Haney's your mandatory, just like anybody else was your mandatory. So why would you all of a sudden say to this particular mandatory, who have they fought? He's your fucking mandatory. Period. Point blank. He doesn't have to fight anybody. He doesn't have to have anybody on his resume. He is your mandatory. Once again, you had no problem at all fighting any other mandatory, and you did not question if they deserved a shot or not. Anytime somebody said Lomachenko fighting another bum, you know what I'm saying, the fanboys jumped out the window and said, leave him alone. He's fighting his mandatory. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, he fighting his mandatory. Hey, you got to do that, right? 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 Well, not this time. The other thing is the whole timing about the whole damn thing. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, if you looked at, if you heard everything I said and looked at it from a common basic sense level, it's not hard to tell. You don't need to figure out whether Mauricio Sulaimán is lying or not. If Lomachenko is lying or not. At the end of the day, this is the reality. He gave up a legitimate WBC belt to be called a franchise champion. He gave up a belt for a designation. Whether this person's lying and that person's lying is actually irrelevant when it comes to the bottom line. If you're about undisputed, then you should have kept that belt. Lomachenko cannot become undisputed with a franchise champion designation. That's by Mauricio Sulaimán's own rules out of his own mouth. He just told you, once again, in the same video, In the exact same video that he said Lomachenko petition, he tells you what the franchise champion is. He says it's not a belt. It's not a championship. It is a designation. So once Lomachenko gave up his belt, he gave up his right to be called undisputed because you gave a belt up for a designation. Comprende? Do you guys understand that? It's very simple to understand. Okay, if you can be straight up and not be a fanboy, you can easily see whether this person's lying or whether that person's lying is not. It does not matter because at the end of the day, this man that told Teofimo Lopez he needs to get a belt because he's chasing undisputed, gave up his WBC belt that he won off Luke Campbell for a designation. And it will always come back down to this dying question. If you think Vasily Lomachenko is above tricking you or misleading the people, okay, once again, I have to bring up the biggest contradiction of Vasily Lomachenko. And I bring it up in almost every video. Why did Teofimo Lopez need a belt, but Gervonta Tank Davis didn't? Keep in mind, and Gervonta Tank Davis at that time was not in his weight class. But he had no problem setting aside. He said he will fight Gervonta for free. But when it comes to people who are game, who is not afraid of him, up, you need a belt, and up, who have you fought, even though you're my mandatory and I'm franchise champion, here you can have my belt. There can't be two champions and you still think you're going to be undisputed. It's very simple. The next video, I'm going to talk about Lomachenko and basically the salt that he was throwing on Canelo Alvarez, because it's about time people figured out, well, no, not figured out. It's about time I let people know what the real deal is with Vasily Lomachenko. Now, everything would have been cool if he didn't almost try to spit on Canelo's achievements and what he's doing. But I'm going to say that for another video, because that's a video, trust me, you do not want to miss. Anyways, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Bruce Van, I'm out.